Hello, everyone. Um, Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I am Dr. Steffany Moonaz. I'm a yoga researcher at the Maryland University of Integrative Health in the United States, which offers a Master's of Science in Yoga Therapy. I'm also a yoga therapist myself and founder and director of Yoga for Arthritis. The focus of my clinical and my scholarly work is on the use of yoga for the management of arthritis and other rheumatic conditions. I'm going to be talking today and leading you through a practice related to the concept of stiffness. So stiffness is absolutely a symptom of many forms of arthritis, joint stiffness in particular. But I think that many of us living in these current circumstances with the challenges we're all facing are also prone to stiffness. And I'm talking about stiffness broadly because in yoga, we know that the mind and the body are inextricably linked. In the world of medical science, we also understand the biopsychosocial model, that all of those aspects of ourselves affect each other and are intertwined. So on a physical level, there are many reasons why we might be experiencing stiffness in the body right now. So I don't know about you all, but I've been at a workstation that is not ideal and not my usual space. So many people are adjusting to working in different places and environments that may not be ideal for the physical body itself. We may be huddled over our children's schoolwork. I'm homeschooling 2 children while I'm working, and I know many of you are in that situation as well. We may be caring for loved ones, busy trying to move businesses online and all of the computer work associated with that, filing for unemployment, applying for loans. And amidst all of that, we may be sleeping less soundly or less comfortably, which can also have an impact on how we're feeling in the physical body. But in addition to that, we may also be experiencing some psychological stiffness. So this is a time where many people are feeling more stress and tension than they might otherwise. There is uncertainty. The markets are fluctuating drastically. There's lack of clarity about whether various places have hit their apex with this pandemic or not, and how long we're all going to be in this current environment. There may be a sense of overwhelm with responsibilities that we didn't have before that may be piled up, and just a lack of control. You know, there is so much going on right now that we have very little control of. And we also are probably out of our routines, if nothing else. That may mean less exercise or a different kind of exercise than the body is used to on a physical level. But also our routines can help us feel grounded and therefore comfortable and secure, and in some ways then better able to relax. Sometimes when we're feeling this stress and tension psychologically, there's a tendency to grip, and the result is stress and tension in the physical body. So in addition to all the reasons we may be physically tense, we may also be holding and tensing, whether we're aware of that or not. And that can have implications for how we're feeling in the body and any stiffness or rigidity we might be feeling. So I'm going to lead you through a physical practice for reducing stiffness, and especially stiffness in the joints of the body, the major joints of the body. I do this a lot with clients and students who have arthritis, but I think that this is really a great practice for all of us. It's something that you can do in the morning when you wake up if you're feeling stiff from how you slept the night before, or just from sleeping and being still for hours. It's also great for a break from desk work, especially if you're at a workspace that is not optimal. I know for a couple of weeks, my family and I were all working around the dining room table together, which wasn't necessarily ideal. So it's great to get a nice movement break in, and even set a timer and remind yourself to do some movement and reduce stiffness throughout the day. And also just anytime that you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed or uncertain, which may be a lot these days. So if you want to do this whole practice at any point in the future, you certainly can. This is being recorded, but you can also take little bits and pieces. So it's a practice that is really nice to do progressively, but if there are little movements that I do in this practice that resonate with you, you can feel free to incorporate them into your day anytime. What we're going to do is move through the body and mobilize all of the major joints. And this can be done moving from head to feet or moving from feet to head. And I like to do head to feet when I want to end with feeling grounded. And I tend to do feet to head when I want to end with a feeling of being uplifted. So we're going to ground, which it's morning for me and I'm getting my day started. So I want to end with a sense of grounding in the day, but you can feel free to do this the other way around anytime. So I'm going to back up so that you can see a little bit more of me and adjust accordingly. You can see that I'm in my bedroom here, which is not where I would normally do recordings, but we're all adapting to unusual circumstances. Okay, so we're going to start with the head. And I want you to begin first by coming into a seated Tadasana pose. So you're going to place your feet on the floor, ankles right beneath the knees, and knees right in line with the hips. So you have a right angle for the legs. And ideally, you want to be sitting on a chair that's allowing you to have that right angle. So you may need to sit up on a cushion or put something underneath the feet in order to experience that. And then really let the feet just sink into the floor. Notice where the pelvis is. Find yourself sitting to the front of the sits bones. You can rock front and back a little bit to find that, or side to side. Sitting to the front of the chair so that you're supporting your own spine here. And then roll the shoulders back and down and just feel a sense of lengthening in the spine. As my ballet teacher used to say, imagine that you have a string on the top of your head that's that you're hanging from, so that you feel a nice lengthening through the spine, and as though the head is weightless, floating atop the spine. Let the arms just relax, and they can rest on the legs or on the chair, arms of the chair if your chair has arms. And from here, notice the breath. You can close your eyes here and bring your focus inward. And as you breathe, notice how the whole torso expands on the inhale and then softens on the exhale. The breath is actually a great practice for reducing stiffness in the body as well, because as we lengthen the exhale in particular, it changes the state of the nervous system. It allows the nervous system to calm and to relax. And you may feel that as you exhale, that you even notice a little bit of letting go in the body, letting go of the stiffness and tension and holding that you may be experiencing. So let's just do a few deep breaths together. Inhale, and then a slow exhale. And feel the body soften as you do that. And let's do that twice more. Take a deep inhale and exhale slowly and gently. Feel the body melt into the support of the chair and the floor. And last time, inhale all together. And then let it out nice and slow and easy. Take a moment here with the eyes closed and just become aware of the state of the body. We'll check in again at the end of this practice just to notice if there are any changes. But for now, just pay attention to any parts of the body that may be speaking to you in this moment, that may feel a little discomfort or just asking for a little bit of attention. Without judgment, without concern, without story, just notice. And these may be places in the body that talk to you quite often, or what you're experiencing might be a surprise. But wherever that is that you've identified, we're going to give those parts of the body a little bit of loving kindness. So we'll start by bringing the palms together and rubbing vigorously just to generate a little bit of heat. And then separate the palms and feel the energy between the hands. You might feel a little bit of warmth or a sense of electricity, energy between the palms. And because that's faded a little bit as we've observed it, let's do it again. And this time, remember those parts of the body that spoke to you earlier and give that warmth, that loving kindness to those places by bringing your palms to them. So I'm going to bring my palms to my hip joints right now and just allow the warmth to melt into those joints or those muscles or those parts of the body that are asking for a little loving kindness. And I can feel the hip joints soften as I do that. Let's do it one more time. And think now about anywhere else in the body that could use a little TLC. So for me, it's going to be my shoulders. And bring your hands there. And let the warmth soak in. You may even do a little massaging. Make sure you're still breathing fully and deeply. And then let that go. Let the arms come to rest again. Notice if your posture has changed. Sit up tall, full, easy breath. Notice if there's any tension in the jaw or around the eyes, where we may tend to grip and hold. And then we'll start with just some movement of the head. So very gentle. Draw the chin down toward the chest, looking down toward the floor, and then look up just slightly. We don't want to drop the head back because that's not great for the neck. We just want to take the gaze slightly upward and then go back and forth between the two as though you're saying yes. And you might even think about what you're saying yes to. Yes to ease, yes to calm, yes to serenity, to contentment. And then bring the head back to neutral. Turn and look over one shoulder just slightly, and then the other. And go back and forth between the two. And now consider, what might you say no to? Overwhelm, gripping and tensing, stress, disconnection. All right, and then bring the head back to neutral. Now take one ear toward the shoulder, and you may feel a little stretch on the opposite side of the neck, as though you're taking the ear toward the shoulder, but not the shoulder toward the ear. So you don't want to hold that shoulder up and then take the head the other way. Still sitting up tall, breathing fully and deeply, and then now go back and forth gently between the two sides. The head is quite heavy, so this is a big lift from one side to the other. So we don't want this to be rapid, just a gentle movement side to side. All right, and we're going to make that a little bit deeper now and take one hand and reach it sort of down the chair a little bit. You might hold onto the seat of the chair for support and keep the two shoulders square so you're not taking one forward or back. And you can slide the hand down toward the floor if you feel comfortable there. You can also take the other arm and maybe put this hand on the shoulder to keep that shoulder calm. Or take it up overhead. You're not going to be able to see my arm well here, but I'm reaching over to the side, a nice big side stretch, so I feel this all along this side of the body. And then come back to center. Take the head the other way, and again, now slide down, so now we're feeling it all along that side of the body. And again, you can take the fingertips to the shoulder and feel a little bit more stretch here, or you can take the arm up and over. Whatever's comfortable for your shoulder here. And then come back to center. And like we did before, we're going to go back and forth between the two sides as a little bit of a dance of the torso. So take it up and over to one side and then up and over to the other side. And you can do this with or without the arms. The arms can come out to the side, or they can just slide down and the other comes up alongside the body. Whatever feels good to you. Just getting a nice little side stretch. And then come back to center, moving into the torso more fully. I'm going to turn sideways so that you can see my spine here, but I'm sitting up nice and tall, and I'm going to do a little seated cat-cow to flex and extend the spine. So drawing the navel in, rolling to the back of the sits bones, allowing a C curve in the spine here, and then arching, lifting the sternum, opening the throat, and then going back and forth between the two. And you may slide the hands alongside the thighs as you go back and forth, getting a little bit deeper into this. And so you may be feeling the shoulder blades sliding along the back, the expansion of the rib cage as you go. And we're going to go a little bit further with this, one arm at a time, and do a little swim, a little freestyle movement of the arms. And feel how the whole shoulder complex gets involved here. Still keeping the length in the spine, and now maybe do a backstroke. My backstroke is imperfect, but I'm getting full range of motion through the shoulder joint, which is what we're after. And then feeling the whole torso moving along with it. You could even do the breaststroke. And so now this is similar to the cat-cow. We're getting that flexion and extension in the spine, but now we're taking the arms along with, so it's more of a whole upper body movement. Now that we've gotten into the torso, let's get into the hands and fingers a little bit. So imagine that you're playing the piano with the fingers. And if you can actually play the piano, then feel free to do some real imaginary finger work here. And then spread the fingers wide. So especially if you're doing a lot of computer work, the hands can get stiff. The hands are a place that many people with arthritis experience stiffness. And spread and bring the fingertips together. And it doesn't matter if the fingertips actually touch here. What matters is that you're spreading the palms, you're moving all the small bones of the hands and the finger joints, and then roll the wrists out. And you may have a little crackling here, and that's fine, and go the other way. You can even do a little brain game and go one way and the other way. Okay, and then as though you're paddling, take the palms up and down. So it's like a flexion, it is flexion and extension of the wrists. Okay, shake the arms out. You don't want to do too much with the hands because then they can start to feel a little overused. But now we're going to move down a little bit more, and we're going to take the whole torso in a circle, which is actually going to get us into the hip joints. Okay, so imagine that the spine is like the spoon on a big pot of stew. So you're going to keep the spine long, and as I do this, you're going to hear my chair creak a little bit. But I'm circling the stew clockwise at first, and you can make this a very small circle, little micro movements. You can spiral so that it gets bigger and bigger as you go. And as you do that, you may feel the weight shifting from foot to foot, from hip to hip. And once you've done that, circle the other way. And feel what's happening in the hips as you go. Now, see if you can do a little figure eight. So it can be a figure eight side to side or a figure eight front to back. The way that I was taught to stirsu you take your figure 8 and you keep moving it so that it starts out between 12 and 6, but then it moves to 1 and 7, and then 2 and 8. So you could play around with that, or just do a little dance of the torso improvisationally, just to get those hip joints loosened up a little bit. And now from here, we're going to go a little bit further into the hip joints by sliding to the side. You want to hold onto your chair so that you're feeling nice and stable here, and take one leg and just slide it back so that you get a little bit of a stretch in the hip flexor. This is so important when we're sitting for long periods of time. So if you are doing a lot of desk work, especially if it's at a workstation that isn't ideally set up for you, then you want to make sure that you get a nice stretch in the hips. And if you have questions about any of this, please put them in the chat box. And at the end of this, I'll be taking a look at those questions and addressing any that I can. And from here, again, you can take the arm up and over and get a nice big side stretch, but this time, not only are we feeling it in the side of the body, but we're also going to get into the hip a little bit more. So this is a great one for getting a little stretch in the hip flexors when you've been working for a while in a seated position. Make sure you're still breathing fully and deeply as you exhale. See if you can release any tension or holding that you may be feeling. Again, is there tension in the jaw, in the eyes, in the shoulders or the hips? And then come up to center, and we'll shift to the other side. So shift yourself to the other side of your chair, slide the other leg back. So obviously if your chair has arms, this doesn't work really well. So you may want to find a chair that doesn't have arms. Another option is to go sideways and slide back, and depending on the chair's arms, you may be able to fit that way. So you may have to play around a little bit. You could also do this on the side of the bed. I have one right here. So that's another option if you don't have a chair available that doesn't have arms. And take the arm up and over. And again, this is only if it feels good for your shoulder. You can also take the fingertips here or to the hip or alongside the body. Imagine this curve that extends out the crown of head, grounding down through this hip. And then come back to center. Getting into the knees now, extend one leg out and then lower it down. You can hold onto your chair or you can bring the hands to the hips. Exhale as you lengthen and inhale as you lower, coordinating the movement with the breath, the body's action with the body's life force. Good. And then take the legs out to the side. You can bring your hands to your knees and then just take one shoulder down toward the center. Now you want to make sure that you're nice and stable here, that you're not going to fall forward. So one thing I could do where I am is put my hands on the chair, or you could do this with the sofa or another chair and just take one shoulder and then the other shoulder down. If you're holding onto the thighs, it looks like this. Shoulder to shoulder. And I just heard a little pop, a little crackling, as normal as your body adjusts and experiences this mobilization. And then come back to center, roll the shoulders one way and then roll them the other way. And then maybe alternate. And shake the arms out again. And now we're going to move down into the feet. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Hopefully you can see my feet here. And if you would like to, you can slide back now so that your back is supported by the back of the chair. You're going to just slide one heel forward and then back. So this is a smaller movement, but we're flexing the foot as it goes forward and then sliding it back. So if you can't see my feet, it's just a little push and draw back, push and draw back. And now we're going to go up on the toes and then lift up the toes. So the heels come up and then the toes come up. The heels come up and then the toes come up. So you're rolling through the feet as you go and articulating all the bones of the ankles and feet. And then alternate so that you have one heel and the other toe. So it's a little bit of a marching in place. Bring the feet flat on the floor, and then like we played the piano with the fingers, play the piano with your toes. Perhaps you're a little less facile with the movement of the toes than with the fingers. Okay, and then extend the legs out in front of you. You may want to hold onto your chair for stability. Make sure you're sitting back so that you're well supported here. Flex and point the feet. And alternate. You can even play with taking the arms out to the sides here, which engages the core a little bit more, or take the arms up overhead or onto the hips. And roll the ankles out and roll them in. And then roll one way and then roll the other way. And then do any sort of little dance that you want to do with the feet here. So you could try figure eights like we did earlier. And then you could go the other way and then just shake those out. And maybe even do a little bit of stomping on the floor and really feel the connection of your feet to the floor. That set my dog off barking outside the door. Okay, and then from here, we're going to ground again. So now we've moved all of the major joints of the body, brought some movement and articulation, and I can actually come closer to you now. Okay. So from here, find your grounding again. You're seated Tadasana pose. So whether you want to sit back against the chair or forward, supporting your own spine, whichever feels most comfortable to you is fine. Draw the shoulders back and down. Let the arms rest in the lap. Find the length in the spine. Again, feel the grounding through the feet into the floor. Feel the grounding through the hips down into the chair. And then you can close your eyes again and just notice how the body feels a little different than it did before that movement. Do you feel more warmth in the body? I certainly do. Do you feel energy moving through the body in any way that you didn't before? Is your attention drawn to any parts of the body? Do you feel a heaviness or a lightness, a tingling, or any sort of sensation that you didn't observe before? What's the overall state or quality of the body now? Is it vibrating differently than it was? Is your blood moving through the body differently than it may have been? Do you feel any differences in the state of the nervous system? Again, without judgment, without story, just observe, just notice. Just building that awareness, the ability to attend to the body's sensation, to notice and to decide what to do with that information. Notice the state of the breath. Has your breath changed after that movement? And what qualities would you ascribe to the breath at this point? Is it more rapid? Is it fuller? Are there any parts of the body that are moving with the breath differently than they did before? Are you holding any tension in the body that you weren't at the beginning of the practice, or have you let go of any tension that you were experiencing at the beginning? And what is the state of the mind? Thoughts, feelings. Just sit with that for a moment. And then take another nice deep breath and let it out with a big sigh. Open the eyes if you had them closed. Shake out anything that needs shaking out. Take a moment to stretch or move the body in whatever way it would like to be moved in this moment. Okay, and I'm going to take a look here and see if we have any questions. Looks like no open questions and nothing in the chat. So it is 1/2 so I have time now for any questions that you may have, or any reflections, any observations that you may have had from that practice, or anything that you'd like to share about your experience of stiffness, both in the body or anything that you're experiencing in life as we know it right now. I think that it's so important for us to stay connected with each other, even as we are so physically separate, to be able to share with each other what we're experiencing and realize that in so many ways we are all in this together, and any strategies that we have for managing this time and growing through it, I think is so important. Okay, so there's a question here from Riga, sorry if I got that wrong, who asks, how much time do we spend on each movement that you showed? Okay, so that's a great question. I knew that we had 45 minutes together, and I wanted to give you about a 1/2 hour practice and then leave time to talk and discuss and reflect and answer your questions. So I moved through it at a pace that that allowed us to complete it in a 1/2 hour. That being said, you could do that whole sequence that we just did in 15 minutes and move through it very quickly. You could also linger and spend more time, and you could take an hour. So it really is up to you how much of a practice you want to do for yourself. So if this is something that you want to do a few times throughout the day in order to give yourself a movement break, maybe you just want to take 15 minutes every couple of hours and just make sure that you're getting some movement. But if you want to make this a more extended practice, you certainly can. This can also be part of a longer yoga practice. So sometimes I'll do this at the beginning just to get my body warm and get the joints moving before I do more of a standard asana type practice, and then with pranayama meditation, so it can be part of a larger whole. But also sometimes I just take the isolated practices. So I might be feeling a little bit stiff in a certain part of the body, maybe my hands. I've been doing a lot of typing, my hands are feeling a little bit stiff. I might just do some of the finger and hand and wrist stuff on its own, separate from the whole rest of the sequence. So it's really to use how you choose. You could also spend more time with some parts of it than others, depending on where you're feeling stiff on that particular day or where you tend to feel stiff. So it's just a little toolbox that you can feel free to adapt to the amount of time that you have and what you feel like you need in that moment. Okay, and then I'm being asked, can you share this with Age UK website? So I'm in the US and I am not familiar with Age UK, but I can certainly find out. This is all being organized by HealthFlix, which is absolutely wonderful, and all of the content is going to get posted to YouTube. So whoever manages the Age UK website could probably link to the YouTube channel to the HealthFlix post, but I can look into that, and maybe you could even share it with Age UK. All right, so on the chat side, Amy says, thank you so much. What a great sequence. Allison is saying, I get very stiff, hard shoulders, which lead to very bad headaches, probably due to computer work. So there are a few things possibly going on there, Allison. Certainly, if you're holding stress and tension in the head and neck and shoulders, that can give you a headache. And that can be just from being rigid and tense and holding and focusing and that sort of thing. But also the computer work itself can lead to headaches, especially if you're having difficulty focusing with the eyes, if the computer is too close or too far, even just the exposure to the computer light for long periods of time. I know that I need to break up my time at the computer for that reason. And I also need to be really careful about how my workstation is set up and what is the angle of my head and neck so that I can experience ease in that part of the body so that I'm not feeling that gripping and tension that might lead to headaches. Understanding how close or far the monitor should be from me, and then also just looking off into the distance. So I'm fortunate that where I'm set up right now, which is not where I usually work, but I have these big bay windows in front of me and I can look out at the park. Here, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland in the States. So I remind myself to take a break from looking at the screen and just focus out on the park for a moment. And it gives your eyes a break from that close work. Because your eyes do need to also look out into the distance, and that can help with headaches as well. And make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Antonia says, thank you for a lovely practice. It was very useful. Samaste from Edinburgh. That's great. All right, so a couple of other questions here. Could you please share another exercise for fingers and hands? Sure, I certainly could, Monica. So another one that I like to do for people with arthritis is taking, so we did sort of the gripping and releasing, which you can do as a fist, but the way that we did it is we brought the fingertips together and open, and so that's a nice big stretch for the palm, which feels really good. But you can also do one fingertip at a time, taking it toward the thumb. Okay, and actually when I lead kids in meditation, I do that sequence with them, and we say, peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. So it's a little mantra that's really simple and easy for them to do and very positive and lovely, but it also is great for stiffness in the hands and getting a little bit of articulation. So we had the wrist rolling, we had the opening, we had the piano playing. So that's another little thing for the fingers and hands. Do we need to focus on breathing in the sequence? Well, what I'll say about that is that breath is always important. Breath is our life force, and you want to make sure that you're breathing. If you are holding your breath, then that is going to exacerbate stress and tension, both psychologically as well as physiologically. So you want to make sure that throughout the practice, you are breathing fully and deeply, what we would call deep diaphragmatic breathing. You can coordinate the breath with the movement like we did. So for example, exhale as you come to the side, inhale as you come to center, exhale as you go to the side, inhale as you come to center. That's one way to incorporate the breath into your practice, but it's also okay just to make sure that you're breathing fully and deeply without coordinating the movement and the breath, especially if you're doing things like wiggling the fingers, you're not going to coordinate the breath with the movement. So that's really up to you how you organize your breath. You just want to make sure that your breath is full and deep and easy. Is there a quick adjustment move or short sequence you could advise for straightening posture when you find yourself hunching over? This is so important, right? Because as we're working on computers, we tend to sort of, hunch forward. So one is just finding your seated Tadasana, right? So like we did in the very beginning, where you notice the alignment of your ankles, knees, hips, shoulders over hips, and I roll my shoulders back and down because for me, that's a big indicator. So if I'm sideways and I'm hunched forward, if I take my shoulders back and down, that brings my shoulders into alignment over my hips. So that's really helpful for me, and making sure the shoulders are relaxed down instead of up is helpful. I also think about lifting the sternum. And you can roll your shoulders a few times. That's nice. But as though you see how I'm wearing a necklace here, as though I'm showing off that necklace. So letting the sternum forward, you're sort of closing the sternum in, which can be protective. And when we're stressed and overwhelmed, in a sense, we're sort of protecting our hearts. But we also want to experience an opening in our hearts, I think, especially now when we want to have compassion for others as we're going through all of this globally together. So that's one thing, but also notice what's happening in your head. So there can also be a tendency to move into forward head, and you can think about drawing the chin back so that the ear is over. If you feel the tops of your shoulders, you've got this bump here. It's called the acromion process. And you can think about whether the hole in your ear is lined up with that bump on your shoulder. And so if your head is forward, your ear is going to be forward of that bump. So that's a nice little indicator for reminding yourself to sit up. My upper back aches when I lift my head up when lying down. What would you recommend? Okay, so, you know, a joke in medicine is don't do that. If it hurts, don't do it. So I'm not sure what you're saying specifically. This is coming from Anonymous. If you're lifting your head like this when you're lying down, I would suggest rolling onto your side and using your arms to press you up. The head is very heavy. You know, it's as heavy as a bowling ball, and lifting the entire head can be a lot on the neck, especially if you've been lying down and not moving for a while. That's a big ask. So if you roll over onto the side, and as you press up from sideways, let the head come with you, that can be less jarring for the neck. So that may be helpful. Monica says, thanks for showing the hands and finger exercises with the mantra. I appreciate it. Wonderful. Okay. Christina says that was really helpful. Thank you. Same from Nicola. Great and helpful. Thank you. Allison says, I also get a cramp in my toes and feet. Any suggestions, please? Okay. So something that I didn't show that I intended to, I have a dog and we have tennis balls all over the house, and I meant to bring one in here. But so I take a tennis ball on the floor and under my foot and sort of roll the foot around on top of the tennis ball. And that's a nice massage for the sole of the foot, and you can roll onto the toes. And the nice thing about that is if you do it seated, you can decide how much pressure you want to apply. And so you can get a very deep massage of the foot if you apply more pressure, or it could be a gentle massage, you know, if you just do it lightly. Another thing, if I back up, maybe I can, well, you're not going to be able to see. If I angle this down a little. Okay. Another thing is that you can just fold your leg over top of your knee. If this is accessible to you, for some people it isn't. You could also put your foot on the bed, for example. If you can reach your feet, just give yourself a little massage. So you can take your thumbs and sort of massage into the arch of the foot, into the ball of the foot, up to the toes. I'm going to take my sock off here. So you can also bring the fingers in between the toes, and that sort of stretches out the toes, roll one way and then the other. If we had more time for the practice, I would have gone through a whole foot massage sequence, because this is really lovely, especially to feel grounded and connected to the earth. So you do this massage on your feet, even up into the ankle, around the Achilles, into the calf. And then when you place your foot on the floor, you'll notice that you actually feel like you have more of a footprint. You feel as though the foot has sort of widened and softened and can make more contact with the floor. So that could be something to try if you're experiencing cramps in the toes and feet. So Allison, I hope that that is helpful. We have just about one more minute here. So I want to say thank you to all of you for being here, for sharing this practice with me. It has been a pleasure to be connected to all of you. I know you're all over the world, and it's a helpful reminder that we really truly are a global community, and anything that we can do to connect and support each other is so important at this particular time. All right. Thank you very much. Namaste.